Who are the biggest dark horses this upcoming season for the Panthers? We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, August 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @L_FLA Panthers. And shout out to those everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs are in our rearview mirror. The sports haven't sported like we want them to, but this summer FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again for another edition of the show to once again celebrate the Summer of Champions here for the Florida Panthers. As of this recording, we are 53 days away from opening night for the Panthers, so it's getting a lot closer there for us here and the fan base. And for today's show, we are going to discuss Bill Zito's day with the Cup. And we're going to go rapid fire what's more likely scenarios for the Panthers and even in the NHL, and also discuss our dark horses. And here to do that with me on a Friday, which means it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show, Nich Fairbanks is back here. And Nick, grateful to have you back here, my friend.
It's great to be back and to know that there's only 53 days and knowing that there's maybe only, I would say, probably about 30 days until the teams are in camp and everything getting the season started. It's feeling good to get back into the swing of things. So thank you for having me back.
Yeah, Rookie Showcase is coming. Media Day will be in mid-September, and before we know it, there'll be some Panthers hockey on our TV screens, or, well, computer screens mostly, because preseason isn't really on regional sports, but you guys get what I mean there. But let's discuss more about Bill Zito's day with the Cup. Obviously, the man who really changed everything for the Florida Panthers into getting them into contention. When there was a point for the Florida Panthers that they really couldn't go scorched earth rebuild, he still found a way to build upon this team, upon the core, and even change things up for them. We're not going to go over with all the moves. We're just going to go over with what the places he went to with the Stanley Cup in his hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And part of some of the places that he went to was Cop's Frozen Custard, a place that he worked with as a teenager right before flipping burgers. And some of the pictures of him was eating some custard out of it, red velvet Oreo chocolate with vanilla too. So that's another thing. So hey, Culver's has made its way down here. Maybe that place can make its way down here too, unless it has already, and I just don't know about it. But also he went to the Clinical Cancer Center of Fraudert. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he spoke about how much that place meant to him too, for not only the patients there, but also the fact that they've taken care of his family over the years too there for Bill Zito. And also visiting the home of the Milwaukee Bucks and the Milwaukee Admirals at the Pfizer Forum. Even though he didn't grow up with them playing in that arena, it's more of a new arena, but still the area in which the teams that he cheered for, a team that he's worked for because he was not only a bat boy with the Brewers, but a stick boy too in hockey right before becoming and advancing his work there too. But when you think of just about the different places and that he's been to, but also how great did that custard look when you saw the pictures there of him eating it with his family?
So I come from a small town west of Chicago, and we had a place called Ollie's Frozen Custard. I believe the gentleman who actually started the brand actually moved a shop down here in Florida, I think over by Tampa or the Clearwater area. Anyways, frozen custard is the best, like bar none. If you get regular ice cream, that's nice and everything, but you just don't get the rich, full flavor of the actual cream that they're trying to provide you. And with him like dipping into getting the custard out of the cup, I mean, it's just one of those childhood things that you think about, like you would take it to like your favorite spot in the city or where you would go hang out with your friends. And, it's that old adage, if you ever watch movies, like people would always, hang out at like Dairy Queen or those little mom and pop like burger shops. So it was actually nice to see how like small town he was able to kind of make that. And then the other part of it is when he was with the Milwaukee Brewers, I love the fact that he was able to share the cup with Bob Uecker, who very underrated actor, in my opinion, just what he did with Major League and all those one-liners that he had.
Yeah, you mentioned Dairy Queen, and after my fair share of skates out at Kendall Ice Arena, there was a Dairy Queen there for a lot of kids to go there after they played hockey and skated too. And also this old place called Dallas Barbecue right next to it, but it's not called Dallas Barbecue anymore. They're in West Kendall. But also you mentioned Major League going to the Brewers game, the cup also being filled with baseballs there too, really found a first love. Also spoke about Harvey Keene, the manager of the Brewers, and also lessons that he learned from there about letting everyone be themselves. And whenever I hear that, it really tells me about meeting people where they are and not try to force change, because sports, when it comes to at the professional level, you can't motivate them. They have to motivate themselves. And it's in the nature of sports and when you're looking at in a locker room, it's either are you in or are you out? So that mentality for him and learning that in the early 80s for him, it really truly helped him in his time of being a general manager. And also a great interview with JP Morosi of NHL/MLB Network. Does great work during the World Juniors there too. And also and just the look on the players' faces of the Brewers. Obviously their season is still going on. And just when it comes to the Stanley Cup, we mentioned elephants in the room. I mean, when you see that big cup coming in, I mean, it turns people's heads too. And even if it's not a trophy in their sport for baseball, it just grabs everyone's attention too. And that's really, once again, what is so special about the Stanley Cup. And it spoke about the players on the Brewers spoke about how much it makes them hungry for a championship. I mean, obviously they've been contention for a few years up there in the NL Central, but still that is great to see for them, a local guy getting some type of glory there. So that definitely helps them in their pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, once you get a small taste of kind of like success that somebody else has, you kind of want to either multiply it or you want to replicate exactly what that individual's been able to do or what that team has been able to do. And, there might be some, parallels that, you could draw between the Brewers and the Panthers. I'm not going into specifics because I'm not going to act like I'm a fan of the Brewers. I'm a White Sox fan, so I'd have absolutely nothing to talk about right now, except for you guys better get that milkshake before it's sold out and before the end of the season. But what you can look for, and you said it best, is that, what he learned is that you meet people where they are. And I think that's the first starting point, is to understand where everybody's at in their lives and what their thought process is. And, from there, as a coach or as a mentor, or as a manager, you have to understand where your people are and then be able to extrapolate that or find that bonding moment where then you can push them forward so that they feel comfortable and confident in their abilities or the ability to change, and that it's not so scary after all. So if Bill was able to take that lesson from where he was with the Brewers and take it here, he's probably got the best group of guys on the team to be able to do that, because look what happened. He traded for Tkachuk. It was a shock. Everybody was like, whoa, we love Hubie. And everybody fell in love with Tkachuk, and the whole team bought in after that. So, maybe the change that he was able to bring with him went through the roster, and it paid off. So that's why we're still talking about this summer of celebration.
Yep, and learned about difficult decisions at such a young age for him, and that is really big for someone who was really exposed to that at a young age for him. And also, before we transition, also brought it to the University School of Wisconsin, University School of Milwaukee, excuse me, and took pictures with the boys hockey team and the girls hockey co-op team. Took it to his actual hometown, 15 minutes north of the city too, and a local brewery, and took pictures with people in the brewery, as obvious Milwaukee is the home of Miller, so also for that town, very rich with dairy, beer, and you name it. So definitely a very iconic place to take the Stanley Cup for sure. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to play a little rapid fire game of what's more likely, just to have a little more fun here during the off season here, and just put out some random questions and just say what's more likely. We are going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have been in our rearview mirror, we have fewer games. And the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. And FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. And all I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to enjoy the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insights on every team in the league, available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Back here on a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. And we are going to play a little game of what is more likely. And I have a few to name to discuss, and also Nick has a few of his. One of them is you'll see at the end is pretty comedic that Nick came up with. So I'm going to start with a few of them. What is more likely, in your opinion, Nick? Bob getting 35 wins or Sam Reinhart getting 45 goals?
Bob, 35 wins.
I would say 35 wins too, because career high for Reinhart was prior to that was in the 30s. We've seen Bob get to the mid 30s before, and obviously we are expecting, at least in the last 2 remaining years of the contract, that he is still going to get a majority of the starts. Next one, Mackie Samoskevich, 41 games, or Spencer Knight, 25 games.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to go, you said Spencer 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll give Spencer 25.
25? So 82 minus 25, that would get Bob to 57 starts. So that's around the area of what he would be. And you got to see what you got in him. So I'm going to go with Spencer Knight, 25 games too. There. Barkov, 40 goals, or Matthew Tkachuk, 100 points?
I'm going to go Tkachuk, 100 points.
I think this is the first time we're going to see Barkov as a 40-goal scorer. Obviously, health is going to be a big part of that. And also, I want to disagree on one, too, for the sake of it. So I'm going to assume that Barkov is going to be healthy, be the 1C all year, as he is expected to. But I'm going to say that Barkov is going to get to 40 goals for the first time in his career, and we've seen the pace for him be at a 40-goal pace before in his career. What's more likely? Bill Zito wins the Jim Gregory, or Matthew Tkachuk winning the Hart?
Bill Zito winning the Jim Gregory. He should have won last couple of years, to be honest.
Yep. For me, I'm thinking that Bill Zito winning the Jim Gregory, the best comparison that I could make is when Leonardo DiCaprio finally won the Oscar. It was for a movie that really wasn't one of his best work, and he's been denied of the Oscar so many times over and over and over again. And it felt like that when Leonardo DiCaprio finally won the Oscar. It felt like more of a pity award. I'm not saying that people are going to pity Bill Zito there, but finally they're going to see the work that manifested. They're going to see, oh, resume, Stanley Cup. Let's finally give him the award there too. All right. This one shouldn't be hard. Top PK in the NHL for the Panthers or top power play? I think I know where we're going with this one, but I'll give you the floor first.
So it's an underrated statistic that the Panthers have actually had. And I think this year they're going to buck the trend. I think they're going to have a top power play unit.
Mm-hmm. And consistency for the Panthers. Obviously, there's only really one replacement on the top unit, and we saw it even shuffled in the Stanley Cup final. And the two guys who were shuffled on there are gone, and obviously OEL and Brandon Montour. But you still have Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Barkov, Tkachuk behind the net too. But systems matter. They definitely do matter. Obviously, there's going to be something. It's going to be hard to replace Kevin Stenlund on the PK side of things, obviously, and that we don't talk enough about how much of a big loss it is for with Kevin Stenlund leaving to Utah. But once again, I think systems matter, and I think they're going to be they're going to be a top PK unit for in the NHL, top 5. For sure, but the Panthers they were in the top 15 in power play, so we shouldn't be surprised if they are in the top power play. Okay, trade deadline, standing pat or all in?
This is kind of a tough decision just because you don't know what shape the team's going to be in, if they're going to be beat up, injured, or maybe, they're just tired and they're not really playing that well.
And LTIR.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I don't really see Zito going out and making a big move unless it's for the future and keeping this team of, the window open. I think he stands pat.
Mm-hmm. I think it's more likely that he stands pat, but I would think once again, just like last year, there are going to be those minor moves. 2027 third or a 2026 second, something, a combination of that. I'm just throwing out there. For what kind of moves that he'll try to make. Put some conditions there too, just like he did with the Tarasenko and the Kyle Okposo trade, which ended up working out for the Panthers too. But we've also seen, even after winning the Cups, that, for example, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they traded 2 firsts for Brandon Hagel, but the production that Hagel is putting up isn't worth 2 firsts as far as offense. And we saw how much the Tanner Jeannot trade flopped for them, with giving up more multiple picks for him. And also Vegas, even after they've won, they've used IR space to get a guy like Tomas Hertl into the mix too. So you never know what could happen. But I'm going to go more with standing pat, and also Bill Zito looking around the league and saying, okay, do I want to deplete my future that much for the franchise? All right, now Nick, you had a few what's more likely scenarios for the Panthers, and a few of them league-wide related too. So go ahead with your what's more likely questions.
Yeah, so Armando, what's more likely, Barkov or Tkachuk having a better season?
I mean, I said this earlier with Barkov getting 40 goals. I think it's going to be Barkov having a better season, but at the same time, with Tkachuk, his shots totals went down due to this season. So will it go back to what it was in the season before, with when he got 104 points and 115 in back to back? That remains to be seen, or is it going to be still for him the feeding to Sam Reinhart, because Sam Reinhart was getting a majority of the goal production? But remember, just like we said earlier in the summer, if Sam Reinhart's goal production goes down, there's going to be plenty of guys that goals could be distributed to. So, but I'm still going to go with Barkov as the better season. Next one.
Yeah. What's more likely, Forsling or Ekblad having more points?
I'm going to go with Forsling, more points. I will say that as Ekblad's, has adjusted his game to be more of a defensive defenseman. Forsling could get up the ice a lot faster, and that could result in dump-ins on the forecheck, and then if a puck is loose, a forward can get in and score on a mini breakaway after a loose puck too. That'll produce a lot of secondary assists for Forsling on dump-ins when getting out of the zone too. So I'm going to say Forsling.
I'm going to go with Ekblad, and the only reason why I'm saying this is because it's a contract year.
Okay.
So he's either going to play for his next contract or he's going to play to stay here in Florida. So my final one, and I hope everybody understands why I'm going to ask this question. This is going off of the last 2 seasons. What's more likely, the Chicago Blackhawks making the playoffs or the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Truthfully, I don't think either of them are going to make the playoffs. But I mean, listen, Chicago has done great to surround Connor Bedard, Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen. On the defense, Alex Vlasic has been a guy who has really upped his game. Now he's on that top pair. He got paid too. But the depth is still both depths are not at its best. But I'm going to go with experience, and I'm going to go with more likely the Penguins.
Okay. I do like that answer, but I will never give the Penguins credit, considering that everybody bashed the Panthers for their run the last year. And I'm going to go with the Blackhawks because I think they're younger. I think they're a year older, and I think Bedard will be much better, and he'll be able to carry the weight of the team on that. So, yeah, just a little bit more to think about and storyline to watch for the season.
And I think for Bedard, before that jaw injury, he was on pace for 30 goals in his rookie season. Man, this guy is just as good as advertised. I can't wait for the Panthers to play him again. That is a matchup that I'm truly looking forward to.
He's really good.
Yeah, definitely generational talent. And that's not just hoopla there for him. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss our 5 dark horses for the Panthers going into the 2024-25 season. We're going to discuss that more next on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether it's speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. Third and final segment here on this Friday, August 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. So in this segment, we are going to discuss more about our top dark horses for the Florida Panthers going into the 2024-25 season. And in this, Nick, for the listeners, our way of thinking about this is not necessarily guys who are necessarily newcomers, but guys who maybe have been on the team for over a year and maybe didn't get a lot of playing time. And so for this list, we are going to discuss that for our dark horses. So I'm going to start with my 4 and my 5, and then I'll give you for your 4 and 5, Nick. 4 and 5. I'm going to start with Nate Schmidt. Definitely is the OEL role. At least the story seems like very OEL-like. A guy who has a lot of experience, left-handed shot, big body guy, who left-handed shot too for him. I think he's gonna get his opportunities, and he's definitely going to try to prove himself for the Panthers, but definitely not the highest on the list as an elder statesman that's coming into the mix for the Panthers. And number 4 for me, Thomas Nosek, left-handed shot, played in Boston and experienced some winning there. And can we expect that same? And like we said earlier, can we expect that same production as Kevin Stenlund, as a guy who's going to play a lot of PK minutes? And it still remains to be seen how he will fit into the mix. Obviously, he spent a little time in Jersey last year, so and the Panthers are just going to keep getting these journeyman type of players while their core is intact too. So there's not going to be any long-term deals for the Panthers anytime soon, outside of a possible Verhaeghe extension, obviously. But you're 5 and 4, Nick. Oh, let me unmute you. Go ahead.
No problem. So I'm on line with you as far as Thomas Nosek. He's my number 5, and the main reason is, he is battle tested and he's a face-off guy. I think he's going to fit perfectly in with the 4th line, and he's going to make the PK seamless for the Panthers. They're going to go from Stenlund to him, and he's going to be able to provide them, I think, with a little bit more offense. My other one is going to be Jonah Gadovich. I think we got a taste of what he can bring. I think he was unlucky on a couple of plays and a couple of attempts, but I think he puts the puck in the back of the net a little bit more this season, to the point where he could hit double digits. And I know that's that's a huge, possibility or a long shot, but I think he has the ability to do it.
I do have Jonah Gadovich on my list, but it's a little higher than that. But we'll wait till I get there for Jonah Gadovich. But number 3 for me is Adam Boqvist, right-handed shot, former top 10 pick, and more of an offensive guy. And it's also for Boqvist, him, young guy, part of a big trade of when Chicago was kind of making a last attempt of trying to contend in the Stan Bowman era. They were saying, rebuild, we're going to make this last attempt. And then it had to go scorched earth after that, obviously, with Stan Bowman and his situation off the ice with everything in Chicago, but now being the GM of the Edmonton Oilers, which is crazy to think. Within a few weeks of getting the job, he gets 2 guys get offer sheeted too, in Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. So ouch for him. But
no respect.
Back to Adam Boqvist. Pascal Vincent in Columbus, he had a reputation of not playing young guys too. It was mostly top heavy for Columbus. And I think Adam Boqvist, with this opportunity, I'm not saying he's going to play every single game, but he's going to get a chance for a young guy who more is offensively gifted. How can he fit defensively for the Panthers? And we've seen guys over and over again come here and buy in for that. So I'm going to say Adam Boqvist will be my number 3 player. That's a possible dark horse for the Panthers. The number 2 for me, Mackenzie Entwistle, another former Blackhawk, right-handed shot, can play on the wing and center, which the Panthers, man, they have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to guys who have dual eligibility, which is so crucial for him. And I mean, we speak about Lundell going up into the top 6 for the Panthers in the case of an injury. Entwistle possibly could be a guy relied on for 4th line in case Nosek has to go up a spot too. So Entwistle will likely be a guy who will be fitting in for the Panthers in the case. It's not about if injuries happen. It's about when. He's a hard-hitting power forward and got on the score sheet in very limited games that he did. So sometimes timelines can be thrown off when you're just up in the AHL, down. So for what he's done in Chicago, it's for him, I'm hoping that he could definitely be productive with the Florida Panthers. You're 3 and 2, my friend.
Number 3 is going to be AJ Greer. He has a lot of shoes to fill. or big shoes to fill, considering the departure of Ryan Lomberg. So, hoping that he's able to come in and establish his identity and complement what the Panthers already have in their lineup. It's also telling that Bill Zito gave him a 2-year contract. So he does see something in him and something that he could add or even bring to the team. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And my number 2 is actually Adam's brother, Jesper Boquist. Speedy winger, I think something that could definitely add to the bottom 6, wreak havoc. He can forecheck, and he had that beautiful OT goal against the Panthers that you wish Bob would have had back, but unfortunately, it just, it was a mess up play by OEL, and Boquist just put it top corner. So looking to see how he can actually elevate his game onto a cup team, just because Boston for the last couple of years, they haven't been able to put it all together in the postseason. And I think with being in the structure of this team, I think he could find himself to be a very useful player when the time starts to crunch.
Yeah. Yes, for Boquist, definitely another player who has who could play on the wing or center too. That's definitely one. He is one of my honorable mention for me. He's not actually on my list for the Panthers here, but left-handed shot for Jesper Boquist, like you said, speed, more offensive, skilled, shifty type of player. But for me, number 1 is going to be Jonah Gadjevich, a guy who is over a point per game player, world junior experience for him, in the system for a year, can bang the body. And honestly, we spoke about how when Forsling got his extension, it was a message to Brandon Montour that this is the guy that we are going to stick with. But little did we talk about at the time that when Gadjevich got his 1-year extension on the same day as Forsling, that was another message to Ryan Lomberg saying, hey, this is a younger guy, maybe a guy with a higher ceiling, honestly, for Gadjevich too. So I think that now another year in for the Panthers, that we could see it get into like maybe even 15 goals for him, because we've seen him close plenty of times. It's just really about finishing for him, for Jonah Gadjevich. So he is my number 1 dark horse for the Florida Panthers, and your number 1 dark horse for the Panthers.
A player that we got to see very limited last year, but he played a significant role in the beginning of the season. I'm going with Uvis Balinskis. I think he played such an integral role to kind of, round out the top 6 to kind of keep the team together. He played very well defensively. He may have been walked once or twice, but listen, it's his first time. He's going to learn the game a little bit more, but he showed some offensive promise, and learning how to jump up in the play and be confident in scoring a goal that he did, I think only just shows the possible capabilities or the untapped potential that he has. And, I'm hoping that he actually makes the team this year and actually sticks, instead of, going between, us and, Charlotte. I think he would be sorely missed on the back end if Florida tells him to go to Charlotte.
Yeah, with his extension, he won't be waivers. He won't be waivers exempt. So chances are he is going to make the team for the Panthers here. There. So I didn't have him on my list because I feel that the expectation for him is just, hey, we've seen a little bit of you here on this level, did well in Charlotte. You're gonna be on the 3rd pair. That 3rd pair for the Panthers is just really about, hey, keeping managing the minutes well for everyone else. Get the puck out of the zone, get a responsible change, and then the occasional jumping into the rush. I remember that goal too. It was against the Carolina Hurricanes, really early on in the season, too, for Uvis Balinskis, and definitely a player that is really truly exciting. And I mean him and Mikolas Havorkas, maybe a year later for Havorkas, that will hopefully see him make it to the show for the Panthers. But for Uvis, I think that there's still a great opportunity for him. That's why for me he wasn't even on my list for dark horse, because he's a known, not necessarily a known commodity, but we've seen a lot of that upside for him, and little sparks here and there for him. But Nich, I want to say thank you once again for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another successful Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. And for the listeners, comment on your dark horses, and also from our second segment of what's more likely, answering of those questions on what you guys think too on that segment too. So Nich, tell everybody where they can follow you.
Armando, thank you again for having me on. And if you do comment, or if the listeners do comment, I will get in on some of those answers and tell them what I think. I think a little bit more fan and listener, I guess, like communication, interaction. Thank you, would definitely help. So, but everybody, you guys can follow me on X at Prudential0. And again, we're only Brett McLean 53 days away from the opening night. So stay tuned.
Awesome, Nich. Thank you so much. See you next week, my friend.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.